The explosion ripped through Crestwood Heights at 3:27 a.m., a thunderous blast that shattered the suburban stillness. Flames erupted into the night, turning the cul-de-sac into a furnace of orange and black. Glass sprayed from windows, car alarms screamed, and the air choked with the bitter stench of burning gas. For a heartbeat, the neighborhood seemed frozen, as if the manicured lawns and tidy homes couldn't fathom the violence tearing them apart. Then came the cries, raw, panicked, piercing the chaos like shards of glass. Daniel Pierce, a 63-year-old retired auditor, jolted awake, his heart pounding as the walls of his home shuddered. His wife, Ellen, was already at the window, her face ghostly in the flickering glow. "Dan, it's the Thompsons' house," she gasped, pointing to the inferno at the street's end. The Thompson family, Mark, Lisa, and their 2 kids, Ava and Ethan, lived in a cozy ranch-style home. Now, it was a pyre, flames devouring the roof. Daniel grabbed Ellen's arm, yanking her toward the door. "We need to move. Now." Crestwood Heights, tucked into the outskirts of Pine Hollow County, was a slice of suburban perfection. Symmetrical houses lined winding streets, each yard clipped to precision, each driveway gleaming with polished cars. Street lamps cast a warm glow, and cicadas droned in the sticky summer air. It was the kind of place Daniel and Ellen had dreamed of retiring to, trading city noise for quiet streets and blooming flower beds. But beneath the polished veneer, a quiet menace had been festering, ignored by those sworn to protect the community. It began with a smell, a faint, chemical whiff near Daniel's mailbox, like sulfur mixed with gasoline. He noticed it during his morning walks with their spaniel, Rusty. At first, he dismissed it as fertilizer from a neighbor's lawn. But the odor grew sharper, creeping into their home through the vents, stinging their eyes on humid days. Daniel checked every appliance, furnace, stove, water, heater, finding nothing. The smell was strongest near the garage, where an old gas line ran beneath the street. Concerned, Daniel raised the issue at the Crestwood Heights Homeowners Association meeting. The HOA, led by the steely Margaret Voss, wielded unchecked power. Margaret, with her tailored blazers and thin-lipped smile, treated the board like her personal fiefdom. She listened to Daniel's concerns with a curt nod, her eyes darting to her agenda. "We'll investigate, Mr. Pierce," she said, her voice clipped. "Thank you." But the meeting pivoted to paint-color disputes, and Daniel's warning was swept aside. Daniel wasn't one to make waves. His career untangling corporate finances had honed his instinct for spotting trouble paper trails that vanished, risks buried under bureaucracy. He knew old gas lines could corrode, knew a leak could turn deadly. So he pressed harder, emailing Margaret directly, only to get a reply about budget constraints and the upcoming Crestwood Summer Gala, a glitzy event meant to draw media and buyers. "We can't have dig crews ruining the streets now," she wrote. "It would tarnish our image." Ellen, a former nurse with a sharp sense of duty, urged him to keep pushing. "Gas leaks don't just vanish, Dan," she said, her voice tight. "I've seen patients pass out from fumes. If we're smelling it, others are too." She was right. Their neighbor, Carla Ruiz, a schoolteacher living 2 doors down, confided that she'd noticed the same foul odor near her driveway. "It's like something's rotting," she said, her brow furrowed. "I told Margaret, and she brushed me off." Determined, Daniel and Carla rallied support. They posted on the community's online forum, taped flyers warning of gas leak dangers, and knocked on doors. A few neighbors agreed. Retired couple Nora and Frank Ellis, whose grandkids played at the community park, were especially worried. But others hesitated. The HOA was notorious for punitive fines, a shrub too tall, a fence the wrong shade. Whispers circulated about retaliatory audits for those who challenged Margaret. "It's safer to stay quiet," one neighbor muttered, avoiding Daniel's gaze. Still, Daniel couldn't drop it. He recalled an HOA meeting where an elderly resident, Mr. Chun, mentioned a similar smell near the playground. Margaret's icy glare silenced him mid-sentence. Mr. Chun left the meeting deflated, never speaking up again. The memory fueled Daniel's resolve. He called a local plumber, who confirmed a leak was possible but needed HOA approval for a deep inspection. "These gated communities are a maze," the plumber said. "The board controls everything." Weeks passed, and the smell ebbed and flowed, sometimes fading only to surge back, sharper than ever. Ellen logged each instance, noting when Rusty shied away from the front yard, his nose twitching. One muggy evening, the odor was so strong Daniel felt dizzy. He bought a cheap gas detector online. Its alarm blared near the garage, confirming his fears. Desperate, he and Ellen sighted the Pine Hollow Fire Station. A firefighter, Mike, took their report seriously but warned, "Crestwood's private roads complicate things. We need HOA clearance." He promised to push, but days passed without word. The HOA responded with a letter accusing Daniel of spreading panic with his flyers and threatening fines for unauthorized signage. Ellen read it, her hands shaking. "They're bullying us," she said, tears in her eyes. "This is about safety." The tension in Crestwood was palpable, a silent dread beneath the pristine lawns. Neighbors whispered about the smell, but feared Margaret's wrath. The board was fixated on the new community center's grand opening, a donor-funded project with a pool and event hall to boost property values. A gas leak scandal, Margaret feared, would scare off investors. One humid Saturday, Ellen hosted a small meeting at their home. 10 neighbors showed up, some with snacks, others with worry etched on their faces. Carla shared how the smell made her cough while walking her dog. Nora Ellis said her grandson had headaches after park playtime. Frank, a former engineer, warned that the neighborhood's 50-year-old gas lines were a disaster waiting to happen. Daniel suggested a petition, a call to the county utility, or a news tip. But they learned complaints had to funnel through the HOA, and utilities wouldn't act without board approval. "It's a trap," Carla said, her voice trembling. Margaret kept HOA meetings tightly controlled. Gas smell mentions were met with, "We're looking into it, but no EVY denke exists." When Carla confronted her, Margaret's smile was razor-thin. "We value your input, Ms. Ruiz. It's under REVYEW." But emails later revealed Margaret had ignored a technician's warning about corroded lines, citing repair costs and the community center's timeline. As July turned to August, the smell worsened. Ellen posted on a local Facebook group, begging for action. Dozens responded, but the post was deleted, flagged as misinformation. Daniel suspected Margaret's allies. A hunch confirmed when a neighbor revealed her cousin moderated the group. One stifling night, the odor was so potent Daniel and Ellen felt lightheaded. The gas detector screamed again. They called the fire station, but another HOA letter arrived, threatening legal action for unauthorized testing. Ellen tore it up, sobbing. "They're going to let us burn." That night, Daniel stood on his porch, the air thick with gas. Streetlights flickered, casting eerie shadows. He thought of the Thompsons, Mark, a carpenter, Lisa, a librarian, and their kids, who waved at Rusty daily. If the HOA wouldn't act, who would? The question lingered, heavy as the humid air. The explosion shattered Crestwood Heights, turning the Thompsons' home into rubble. Daniel and Ellen fled, Rusty in Ellen's arms. The street was pandemonium, neighbors screaming, some bloodied by glass, others fleeing in cars. Daniel ran toward the wreckage, spotting Lisa Thompson's hand in the debris, a child's toy nearby. A flare-up forced him back, the heat scorching his face. Firefighters arrived, pulling him to safety as paramedics swarmed. Ellen clung to him, sobbing, her face smudged with ash. Margaret Voss stood in the crowd, her silk robe askew, her face pale. Her usual poise was gone, her eyes betraying guilt. The flames lit her like a ghost, a silent accomplice to the disaster. By dawn, the fire was out, but the toll was grim. Mark, Lisa, Ava, and Ethan were gone. Their home, on an old lot, had sat atop a corroded gas line, ignited by a spark likely their furnace. Crestwood was evacuated, cordoned off by police and utility crews. News vans swarmed, capturing a suburban nightmare. Daniel and Ellen sat on a curb, wrapped in a blanket, as medics treated Daniel's burns. Ellen couldn't erase the image of Ava and Ethan's bikes in their driveway. "We tried, Dan," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel nodded, guilt clawing at him. Had he pushed hard enough? The media seized the story, fueled by Daniel, Ellen, and Carla's accounts. Headlines blared. HOA ignored gas leak warnings. Family lost. Residents demanded justice, grief turning to fury. Margaret issued a vague statement of sorrow, dodging blame. Investigators uncovered negligence, buried complaints, diverted funds, and emails showing Margaret ignored warnings to protect the community center's launch. District Attorney Sarah Klein vowed accountability. "This is criminal neglect," she told reporters. The FBI probed for corruption. Subpoenas hit the HOA board, and Margaret's facade crumbled. Documents showed she'd known of the risks but prioritized optics. A VY Gill for the Thompsons filled the park with candles and tears. Carla spoke of Ethan's kindness, Nora of Ava's laughter. Anger simmered. Some shunned Margaret, who lingered at the edge, guarded by police. The trial unfolded in the community center, now a courtroom. Daniel and Ellen testified, voices steady. Daniel recalled Margaret's dismissive smirk, her empty assurances. Ellen, drawing on her nursing past, condemned the board's inaction. "They didn't just ignore us," she said, glaring at Margaret. "They silenced us." Margaret claimed ignorance, blaming old infrastructure. But texts revealed her fear of bad press over safety. The courtroom buzzed with disgust. Crestwood's lawns were torn up, gas lines replaced amid caution tape. Residents united, sharing meals and forming a safety committee. Daniel and Ellen, in a motel while their home was fixed, battled guilt. They'd done all they could, yet the Thompsons were gone. At the VY Gill site, a new tree bore a plaque for the family. The trial ended with Con VY tie-ins. Margaret and 2 board members guilty of negligent homicide, Margaret facing second-degree homicide charges. Sentences brought relief and sorrow. No prison term could re-VYV the Thompsons, but it was a reckoning. Crestwood was scarred, but stronger, its residents vowing VY violence. Daniel and Ellen stood by the Thompsons' memorial, the cicadas soft. "We owe them more than grief," Daniel said. "We owe them change." Ellen squeezed his hand, a spark of hope amid the ashes. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this VY Deo with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next VY Deo.